This is the Aptitude Outdoors Podcast, where we interview travelers, explorers, and outdoorsmen and women to bring you the best tips and stories from around the world. Welcome back to the official Aptitude Outdoors Podcast. I'm here with my super great pal, Mr. Kyle Smith. He's a true American hero, as all my guests are. And I've known Kyle for quite a while now. Actually, we met because your wife was my boss at one point in time.
Yep, started bringing her around to different things we were planning, and it's like, hey, man,
The first time,
like to do cool things?
the first time we met, I came to your house for a party, like a work party, got drunk, bought a bike off of you, and then we started riding bikes together. Showed up with $400 cash.
It's the best way to do it.
And ever since then, we've been real good pals. So, man, I have a ton of questions that I've been meaning to ask you. We've done interviews before, but this is not super like an interview. It's just like, I want to know, when did you get into like the outdoors? Because I've only known you as, you're like the guy when I'm like, I want to do something outside, I like call you or our friend Bill, because I know you'll do it. So like, man, when did that begin? Like, what was the birth of Kyle the outdoorsman, the Patagonia wearing, bearded man of many talents?
Probably high school, running across country. Got to go. My coach was a big traveler, so I started running cross country because freshman year we went to Florida, and I was like, I like Florida. I don't really like running, but I'll try it. And so we went there, and turns out I was okay. Between sophomore year and junior year, went to Australia to run, and from there it was just like, what cool things can I do towards running?
Were you like running through the desert out in Australia, or was it like track fields?
No, so like Australia is all coastal for the most part. Like everything's all along the coast. So we were in Sydney, so we ran a race with 62,000 people. Wow. Where it's 14 kilometers, 8.6 miles. So you go like up and over everything. It's quite hilly, and then you go up and up and up, and at the very end of this race, you crest this hill, and then there's Bondi Beach, where you like finish over the like Pacific Ocean. So like that was the biggest, coolest finish I ever did in a race, because it was just boom, there was the ocean.
How old were you?
15 and a half.
When you went to Australia to run?
Mm-hmm.
Damn. I've never even been to Australia. I'm 30.
No parents. It was like 3 chaperones and just a ton of teenagers just having fun.
Did you get
trouble?
Did you fight a kangaroo?
No, but you could see them like as you're driving through. You know, we did go up in the Blue Mountains. You're just driving, and it's the same as you would see a deer off the side of the road, and there's a kangaroo just hopping through the forest.
That's what I was gonna ask. Are they just like deer?
Yeah, I think so.
Wow.
It was crazy.
I really want to go to Australia for many reasons, but I've heard it's pretty expensive. And I have a lot of money wrapped up in outdoors gear. I have to sell it all just to get a plane ticket.
So as a kid, we did fundraisers, so it was easy.
Yeah.
$2,500, I think, back then.
I'm going to start selling cookies.
That's what we did. Barbecue chicken, cookies.
Nice. That's all it takes.
I think I spent like $500 to go. I raised the rest. And then like I got in trouble when I got back. My parents were like, "You didn't give us anything? Like, we sent you to Australia," and like I bought myself a T-shirt, and that was it.
Were you gonna bring back a didgeridoo?
I guess a lot of people did. A lot of people brought didgeridoos, and I brought a boomerang, but I kept it. Like, I didn't give it to anybody.
I think I tried to throw a boomerang once, and it failed epically. I just kind of gave up.
I got it to come back once, and it cut my leg, and that was the last time I think I threw it.
Yeah, that's about how things go like that. But man, so you traveled, basically got to travel across the globe as a young man, and you came back, and from what I understand, you've done some pretty gnar stuff after that. You lived in Alaska for a while. Mm-hmm. You've done some other crazy stuff. What was it like to live in Alaska? Like, to me, that's like the pinnacle of outdoorsmanship, is to move to Alaska, fight bears, fight drunk guys, tackle seals. I mean, that's all.
I mean, I saw plenty of bears and drunk guys, but like where we were was not necessarily what you would say like Alaskan wilderness, but it was still Alaska. I mean, walk out the door and you look all 360 around you is mountains, and absolutely beautiful. And we were on one of the places where we could actually drive in and out of our town, Skagway, Alaska. A lot of people come in for cruises. So, like, I think it's about 2,000 people there in the summer, and then 10,000 people can step off the ship in one day.
Wow.
So it's a weird thing to say, like, yeah, I was in Alaska, but like it was this commercialized thing. But at the same time, we could drive an hour or two and be out of everything.
Yeah, but you weren't in Alaska like bumming. You were doing some
we
cool
were
stuff.
We were guiding, and through that as well, we could like go with other companies and do their kind of thing, and mountain biking. And
so you specifically guided like road biking trips up the mountains or down the mountains. How'd that work?
Most of the time, it was up 3,300 feet, 15 miles, and we would drive them up, go pick them up in 15 passenger vans, take them up to the top.
We talking like fat old dudes on the cruise ship?
Absolutely. Like, I haven't been on a bike in 30 years, and I was like, sweet, man, we're going to go bomb this hill at 25 mile an hour. And I hope you're going to stay on, because there's a lot of paperwork I got to do if you don't.
Sounds awesome.
So, yeah, we'd drive them up, have them get on a bike, pedal around for like 10 minutes, and on like the border of Canada, and then we'd bike back into the U.S. where we'd have to stop in customs every single time.
Really?
Show passports if they wanted it, and then we'd go back down. 25 mile an hour is supposed to be our max. We'd get up to 30 sometimes. And that's bombing. I mean, we were on mountain bikes and on the road, but there was tour buses going by.
Yeah. And
especially people haven't been on a bike in 10, 20, sometimes 30 years. Like, we were bombing those hills.
I've always, everybody always sees and hears the word guide. And they're like, dude, that's the life. Anybody I've ever met that's guided anything, all they talk about is how 90% of their time is just helping people who are bitching that they don't want to do it or it's too hard, or like dealing with people that have no experience. And you're supposed to be like a professional to help them get this like fulfilling big experience out of their life. I mean, I used to be like, man, I want to be a guide. And then I've talked to people who do guide professionally, and I'm like, I do not want to be a guide.
We boasted a downhill tour. Well, there was a short little jaunt where you had to ride uphill, and people got so pissed that they had to go uphill. And we had people to the point where like complaining, like, this is supposed to be a downhill tour. And I would tell everybody, we're trying to get the mountain to change its mind. However, so far it's not. And I would offer to like walk with them. Like, it's fine. Like, it's cool. Like, we'll walk in 2 minutes. We're going to be up this little bit, and then the rest of it is downhill. But even to the point where we'd get down to the bottom, almost done with our ride, we'd come down probably 3,200 feet at this point. We're going to sea level because they all came off the boat, and it was a very, very gradual downhill to ride back through town, but it was still a downhill. I mean, you could tell. And people would just get so mad that, they can't coast the whole way. I got to pedal through this thing. And the funny thing was, if you offered to radio, because we had radios on our vests that we wore, radio a van to come pick them up, that would just, like, how dare you offer that? I'm going to, and, that would just, like, spark this thing. We're like, I don't have anybody come pick me up. But
yeah, we'll get the van. Don't worry.
Right
just
before
sit over
that,
there.
it was like the worst thing ever. But then all of a sudden they're fine as soon as you give them a cop out.
How long were you up there doing that?
5 months was it, and it seemed like a lot longer.
Is it just like living in a like a bunkhouse and just partying and?
Yeah, a lot of partying.
I like that.
I was married for 2 years at that time, which was great. We had a ton of fun doing it, but it was a singles man's game that I missed out on.
I'm sure.
But no, I mean, because even if you didn't want to party, if you're just going to like go out and have a couple drinks and then go to bed at a reasonable time, next thing you know, you look and it's midnight because we were there in the summer and it's light out until 1 a.m.
I didn't think about that.
And so you're like, it's got to be like 6.
Does that
like
screw with you? Does that make you feel like does it screw with your sleep schedule? Because right now
it did, yeah, absolutely.
It's dark. It's 6:30.
We got out before that happened.
Yeah,
there's no way. I would not do well.
You get out of work, you get out of whatever. It's 5, 6 o'clock. It's dark. It is dark. I was waiting for you to show up here to do this podcast. I was like, man, I need to go to bed. I'm tired.
And that would be all the time. There'd be up into an hour of daylight during that time. So for us, it was great because it was an hour of dark. And
oh my God.
For the most part, it was fine. But if you stopped watching your watch. You stop looking at the clock. Next thing you know, it's like 11 on midnight, which isn't super late, but at the same time, you got to get up and go to work, whatever, go ride a bike. But yeah, it could screw with you that way.
Did you get to do any other crazy stuff while you were in Alaska, or was it just work, guide all the time?
No, it was cool because, the guy that we worked for was never around. He figured it out. Like, he had a good group of people running his business, and he would check in on it from time to time. And then he would travel around like Alaska and Canada, going to music festivals and like paragliding off of a mountain. Like, that was like his thing. So, I mean, he figured it all out. So he was pretty relaxed. And then so with that, he realized that we were a good group the year I was there. And so we got to like take all the bikes that we had. We could go ride up the mountain afterwards. Mm-hmm. We could trade like different, like we went dog sledding for free because, we'll take the dog sledders out on a bike tour if you come.
And like swapping?
Like swap, yeah. Like you'd comp.
What's that like?
Go out and comp. So I thought it was going to be really lame because we went on like a modified golf cart. And I was like, this is not cool. I want to be on like an ice glacier.
What do you mean by a modified golf cart?
Like, it looked like a golf cart, but with like no steering wheel. And then like somebody stood on the back and the dogs were like tied up to the front.
So it's like the tourist version of dog sled.
Absolutely. And I was like, this is kind of lame. But the dogs were so excited. They were jumping, like getting ready to go. And then come to find out, you have two options if you're in Skagway that I know of. You can go up on this side of the mountain in the dirt and ride this modified golf cart, or you can take a helicopter to the top of a glacier and ride, dog sleds on top of this glacier. But the trick was, if you're on the top of this glacier, it's actually horrible for these dogs because it's kind of harsh. Well, having the sun bounce off of this glacier constantly on ice, they would have to rub like Vaseline on their stomachs to keep it from burning all the time.
Jeez.
I think something, or maybe it was zinc. I think they rubbed zinc. They said
gnarly,
and they'd have to wear booties all the time. So like if you have a dog that's not quite as quick as the others, I guess they would go to the glacier. When really we had like the Iditarod dogs that we got to tour with or whatever, go on this tour with, was dogs from the Iditarod. That's how they go train during the summer.
They'd run on a glacier?
No, they'd be on the side of the mountain on dirt.
Oh,
with these modified golf carts.
Jeez.
And so I got to go on a sled with Iditarod dogs.
That's sweet. I just read this book called Endurance about Ernest Shackleton. Anytime I hear about glaciers or like insane winter, I think about that book. Have you heard about him, Ernest Shackleton? No. You'd like it. This dude was like one of the original explorers. Like, well, I guess he was not one of the original, but it's like when you think of explorer, this guy is like the guy. He's the guy that went to Antarctica and he was trying to like be the first to the South Pole. So he went down there with this group of dudes on this boat and they got stranded so they were sailing around Antarctica, but like surrounding Antarctica is like just ice that freezes. So there's like the land mass and then the ice freezes as winter comes. So they were sailing through in like the early 1900s, I think, or was it the 1800s? I'm not good with dates. They're sailing through. The ice freezes around their boat, and they're just locked. They're stuck. And they're just like, man, I really hope the wind breaks up this ice jam, but it just never does, and the boat ends up sinking. And they're like, long story short, they got these sled dogs. And that's what I started thinking of when you were talking about sled dogs and like harsh conditions. It was nuts. They're feeding them like rations and they end up eating the sled dogs because they're like there's not enough food. Terrifying to think. Like,
I can't imagine like I've had some adventures, and by adventures I mean I've had some things that have gone very wrong.
Yeah.
And like whether it be out in the middle of the woods in a windstorm that you think that you're about ready to die because all the trees are gonna fall on you, or
that happened just recently.
That did, absolutely. To being out like on a bike with a flat tire in California and not having, anything that you need. But I can't imagine being miles away from anything or anybody else.
Thousands of miles.
Well, absolutely at that point. And like, come what may, we gotta figure it out, and we're gonna eat whatever we gotta eat, and we gotta do whatever we gotta do. Like,
I mean, I'm always recommending books. I mean, because I just love reading about like adventure stuff. But this is the most insane survival story I think I've ever read. And they just like took it to the face. They were just like, "Yep, I'm cool. It is what it is, man." Like you read the diaries of the guys that were with him, his crew. They were just like, "Man, great night out on the ice. It wasn't too cold. I got beans." I was like, "Damn!" Like I'm complaining about, like, "Oh man, I really want pizza."
Back when men were men.
Yeah, it's nuts. Like the things that they did to stay alive. One guy got chased across the ice. They were hunting seals. They said they were so tame because they've never seen humans before. They just walk up and club them. They would just like bludgeon them in the head and they eat them because that's all they had. And they're like burning blubber for like warmth. Just like, yeah, this is our life now. Like it's not too bad. And they'd never seen was a leopard seal. They like are vicious. They like attack you. And this dude's just like, "Oh, what's that?" And the seal chases him down. Like the guy behind him like had a shotgun. He's like, "Oh shit!" Like killed it, and then they ate it. They're just like, "Oh, hungry out here." Gotta. It's like to think of the stuff that these people have gone through, and like they're out on the ice. They're like basically the ice is melting because it's freezing, but it's not cold. It's like ice water, so it's not cold enough to like freeze. It gets a little mushy. They're dragging boats. Like little survival boats like that, just dragging them through the ice, just like heaving them through the ice. Like, today we've made 1 mile, only 145 left to go. Like, holy shit. I can't fathom that.
You adapt to whatever comes, like you have to adapt to what it is. But we will never in our entire lives have like to adapt to something that intense.
And they did this willingly.
Yeah. And they're like, "Oh, what a great day."
Cause like nowadays you got, and I mean, I'm not, discrediting anything anybody does. Like you've done some long distance endurance stuff. I've done some long distance endurance stuff. And like, cool, 6 months hiking the Appalachian Trail. Was it 2 months or 2 weeks bus cycling the West Coast?
About a month total, 2.5 of actual riding. But
yeah. So we've both done some like putting some miles. Freezing out on ice and dragging a boat and eating bludgeoned seals. That's a whole new level. That makes me feel like I've done nothing.
Well, in my civilized Alaska, as soon as it was going to get cold, I got out. Like this. No, I'm not staying. Because it goes from 2,000 people to 300 between summer to winter, and then
it's a lonely winter.
The only thing that's open for like a month is the grocery store, and it's open one day.
They only have
open 1 hour every day.
2 types of beer,
and that's like when you. Oh no, they got a lot of beer.
Yeah.
A lot of different beer.
Nice.
That's when you see people, and other than that, you stay in your house the entire time.
I feel like I could get behind that.
I can see that being a good thing for some.
I'd just end up going crazy.
Inside with dark outside the whole time. I mean, even now, like if we've got a window view right now, and it's dark, and it seems like it should be midnight, and my watch is charging. I don't know what time it is, but
it is. What is it? 7:04.
And yeah, I mean, I can't like all the time. That would mess with you.
Yeah, that's crazy. Mm-hmm. But so beyond Alaska, I mean, that was a brief chapter in your life. But so I don't know the story in order. You were like a horse camp director for a while.
Yeah. That was before Alaska.
That was before.
That was 2010 YMCA store camps. Mm-hmm. So taught outdoor education for a year. Well, like a school year, so 5th and 6th grade. Science camp. That was me. All the cool.
You're one of those nerdy camp counselors.
Yeah, just be stupid all day long, and kids love that. I mean, that's all you got to do. And then you try to teach them at the same time. You can have fun and learn. Trick them into teaching. It was kind of.
Everybody always tells me that kids love me. They just don't know why. I'm like, it's because I'm an idiot. They like it.
They really just accept that.
They accept that I'm a simple man. They don't.
That's all you got to be. Kids they don't need a lot.
I don't BS the kids.
Just have fun.
I just act
be up
dumb.
Straight. Have fun.
But see, what was that? I just can't see you as a horse camp director. It's so weird.
I've always loved horses, and like horses are like a girl thing, a woman thing. Like,
I don't think so.
I think they have
cowboys.
Like stereotypes.
Nowadays,
cowboys
they get that.
Yeah, because you're thinking of like horses painted on girls' walls. I don't know.
Like My Little Pony.
Horses are cool. Like they're amazing.
They're gigantic.
They're huge. They're fast. They're unpredictable.
Talk about pure American muscle.
Yeah, like one of the coolest things that I could hope to see in my life is like wild horses.
It's like South Dakota. Where are they at?
Probably.
Are they out west?
I know Idaho.
They're not native though.
Some.
They're just were like transplanted. Here.
Yeah.
But they're still sweet.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
no, like get on a horse and just like giddy up, yeehaw. Like
I've been on a couple.
It's one of the scariest, coolest things ever. So even as a kid, like I think 15, 16, I'd take buddies with me and my parents. We'd go like horseback riding, and we'd go. Bell Fountain, Ohio has a cool place where you just go up in the hill. We call it mountain since it's right next to Mad River Mountain. But
oh yeah, I've been there.
Go up, hiking up and down these hills. You're walking on a horse, and walking on a horse is cool. But I was always like, eventually, I got to do more than just walk a horse. So this camp was my way to do that, and they showed me how to canter, how to trot, canter, and then gallop on this horse. So these have these people that are like, you want to try this out? Absolutely, let's go. And so having somebody willing to show me the ropes was like all I needed. And from then I was just hooked. From the first week we were there for our orientation, we went on a horseback ride because that's what we do with the kids. You take them out and you do that. Mm-hmm. You take them out for a walk because a lot of it was 5th and 6th grade camp. A lot of it was like TPS. All these kids coming up there have never seen a horse.
I went out there.
Yeah?
In grade school.
Nice. Yeah. And then they first see a horse and then have the opportunity to ride one, which was awesome. But then for me, having that opportunity after hours or weekends, go in and be like, hey, we're going to go on a trail ride. You want to go? Yeah. And then we do our traditional walking the horses around until we get to an open area. Then they're like, all right.
Did you ever just let it rip?
Yes. That's terrifying and so awesome at the same time. So I did that during the school year. I would help anytime they would ask for any sort of help. Any extra person wants to do it, I would help out because as a kid, loved it. Liked watching old Westerns, Wild Wild West, absolutely. So anytime they wanted help with these horses, I was there. The farriers were there. I was there to like watch and just figure out what they were doing. It's just interesting. So that led to we were deciding if we were going to stick around in Michigan or move on. And they offered me this ranch director job because, hey, you're around a lot. It seems like you know what you're doing. They wanted me to do programming. So I don't need to know ins and outs of horses because I wasn't qualified for that by any means in 9 months that I got to do it. But
teaching about horses.
But or coming up with a program to do it. Or we would teach, the senses of the horse or different things like that. Summer was more fun and just like, pretty much my job was like, if a kid's not on a horse, what are they doing? And then we had barn staff. So I was the director. We had a barn director that he would take care of. He was like a rodeo clown, rodeo cowboy, sheriff, mounted police, around horses all of his life, which worked out for me because he saw the interest and then allowed me to figure out anything I needed to do.
So
to go take these horses. So we go out one time. We get together. It's him and I, and we get together with the kids camp director, and we're gonna go. They're gonna steal our goats, and we're gonna chase them down. We've already got this planned out. They're coming out on a hayride, steal a goat, and take off, and then we're gonna chase them down. Well, something was going on with our own camp that put us behind schedule, so we needed to get there because now they're going back through the trails to their part of the camp, and so we have to go. So this horse that I'm on, Red, he's got huge horse, just muscle all over. He's got a breast strap on, and somehow that comes undone as soon as we start taking off. And Tom's been on plenty of horses that have just all out gone. Not Kyle, okay? Not at all. So we start going, and the breast strap comes off the horse. The horse steps on it, and then starts to stumble forward. Oh. And so I start to go over the saddle, somehow stay on, grab on on his neck at this point, pretty much. Somehow this horse stays up, and I'm freaking out, but at the same time hey, I'm fine, everything's cool. And this guy Tom, our barn director, was like, take it off. So I get off real quick, take the breast strap off. He's still got the saddle on. And he's like, let's go. And I was shocked to like, I thought that was like going to be it. Like I just survived almost being like rolled on by a horse. But to him, he's like, we got to get our goats back. The kids are expecting us. So I was like, all right, let's go. So I took that off real quick. And by this point, we were very late. And so it was as fast as these horses would go through the woods, through the trails, you know, like turning, like dodging branches.
They probably know those trails pretty well.
No, they're hardly on those trails at all.
Wow.
Those were like different trails, and we would like mostly we had them out in like pens, and we'd go like one trail around the thing. These trails, like not at all. But my horse was following his, and horses are pack animal. They like to stick together. And if I would try to slow my horse down,
he's like, "No way, buddy."
He would like reluctantly do it, but then as soon as I let up on the reins, it would just like a slingshot, off we'd go. And I mean, horses 35, 40 mile an hour through these through trails, like terrifying, but incredibly cool.
Well, we've gone that fast riding bikes, like just tearing ass like down a hill.
Downhill, yeah.
And that's scary. Could you imagine that on like a big giant vibrating muscle machine under your body?
Absolutely
that's got to be
terrifying.
sweet.
And then we never found the goats. We never got the goats back.
Well, yeah. Who cares about goats? Horses are way cooler. But no, like seriously, you guys. So you and Ashley, your wife, went on a horse packing trip. Yeah. That is, I think I mean, I'm always jealous of anybody's sweet outdoors experiences because I'm always like, damn, I want to do that. But when you told me you went horse packing in like, what was it, Idaho?
Flash forward 6 years. It was 6 years between like being on a horse, yeehawing in Michigan.
So pissed at you.
To Idaho.
I wanted to fight you.
Ashley went to Idaho for a conference. And Idaho, potatoes, right?
Wrong.
No. Beautiful. Idaho, amazing. And there, as soon as she went out there, she was like, I got to bring Kyle here. And she went on like this big boat raft trip that they had. They were showing everybody. And she said, okay, I want to make my husband a cowboy. What do I do? And they're like, you got to take him on a horseback trip.
Need some chaps, need a hat.
And chaps. Assless chaps. So
we'll put a picture up.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we went to Idaho. We flew into Boise and like drove an hour northwest. I don't remember.
Yeah. Nobody cares about direction.
No, not at all. We drove an hour one way, and at that point, we met these guys like out in the middle of nowhere, like just sitting there waiting for us with horses ready to go.
It's like Western Idaho.
Yeah, like north,
like where the Rockies are.
Northeastern. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Rockies. Okay. I mean, you were like Montana border kind of thing.
Okay, northeast.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, like it goes up into that like land peninsula. It's not really a peninsula, but anyways.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Get up there, and they're sitting there waiting on us. I think we got lost. Well, I think we got lost. Ashley has narcolepsy, so she falls asleep very easily. And she didn't tell me I was going to have to turn in anytime soon, so guess who kept driving? So by the time we get there, these guys, I think, were like stupid city slickers, just like...
Let me guess, you're from Ohio.
Let's go. They're late. They're from Ohio. Absolutely. And so we get there. They're all ready to go. We give them our stuff. They pack it up for us. And so this was our first guided trip, first and only guided trip. Every time else we've done anything, whether it be like a small backpacking trip or our biking across or up the coast, has always been done on our own. So everything we do is just her and I, or maybe some buddies that go along for anything we do, but it's never been guided for us. And so we had a lead guide, a wrangler, and a chef that went with us.
Wow.
Yeah, cordon bleu trained chef. Who just, his thing was like just to be out in the wilderness and also cook food for people. And so.
Talk about a badass career.
Absolutely.
Holy shit.
Absolutely. So we would go off on these, well, we went in like 9 miles and then had everything set up for us. They had like a campsite set up.
Like you didn't have to bring your own tents or anything? It's just all inclusive.
Yeah, we brought our own tent for doing other stuff once we were done with this like 3-day trip. But no, they took everything. The tents were set up. Everything else was already set for us. Like we had a horse. Ash was on a mule, but we all had other mules with us too that like packed all of our stuff in.
Mules.
Yeah, absolutely. So they would pack those up. We would just hop on, and that went back to like strictly walking. And I think going out there, I was like, we're going to be cowboys. This is going to be sweet. And I was a little disappointed to start because I was like, I really want to get up and go on a horse. But at the same time, it was really cool. These horses were well trained.
You did some fly fishing out there too.
Yeah.
You're
Fly
nailing
fishing.
them.
Fly fishing in a river, which I always thought it was like, big casting, fly casting. And to find out like that's not always the case was a shock. But then, yeah, like you could take out these rainbow trout like nothing. Because most likely it's not fished all that often. So we took like 60 fish in 3 hours. Like we stopped because I think we were bored of catching fish.
Really?
Yeah.
I can't say I've ever had that problem. I've caught so many fish. I've been bored.
That was like the one time, and it was awesome.
Usually it's like a 6-hour endeavor, and I barely get my limit if I'm lucky.
It was catch and release for the entire thing, and I wish it wasn't. I wish we would have gotten to eat just even a small portion of it.
Was that per their rules, or was it just?
I think it was just per the company's rules. I'm not really sure why. I mean, we had like steaks waiting for us when we got back.
Yeah.
So it's not like we went hungry or anything.
There's something to be said for just being out in the wilderness and catching your own food.
Absolutely. And I guess just to be out in like Idaho and like catch rainbow trout and would have been something. But
dude, you're already getting me excited. Like I that's the one thing that anybody has told me about in the last maybe like 10 years that I was like, because I do a lot of outdoor stuff. I mean, I'm not like, just a homebody. I don't like to do anything.
No, I mean,
my
you
wife
sit at home
and
ever.
No, I don't.
If you are, you're working on like your next plan to get outside and or a metal album.
Yeah, I do that quite often. And so my wife and I, we will go backpacking anytime we get the chance. We just went up to Manistee on a whim not that long ago. I'm sure people are sick about hearing that every video and podcast, everything I post in the last 2 months. I'm like, just went to Manistee. Like, okay, yeah, we get it. But we'll go. Most of our trips involve going backpacking because we already have the gear. Like, it's not a chore for us to go backpacking. We love it.
You pretty much load up and go.
Yeah. Or if you call me and say, hey, you want to go run, you want to go do archery, you want to go to the park and just dick around, it doesn't matter. I'm always down for that. And but that one trip in my mind is like the most epic thing ever. I want to do that so badly. Because I've never done, I don't know much about the horse thing. I've ridden horses before. Like, I had one of my old girlfriend's friends had a horse farm, and we would go out there and ride horse once. And my buddy growing up in high school, Andrew, he lived like 5 miles from where my parents' house was. His parents owned a horse farm, but we didn't ride horses. They'd con us into shoveling shit in the mornings, and then we'd go out and ride 4-wheelers and stuff. But man, that whole horse trip just sounds like, even if it didn't have the whole them setting it up for you and stuff, just to go out there
absolutely.
and camp and eat, pre-planned ramen meals, I'd be stoked.
Yeah, and it worked out for them. They're normally a hunting outfitter, so elk.
They didn't have to do
probably
anything.
black-tailed deer, I'm guessing. Typically, they're going to take people out there to do that. So when two stupid people from Ohio want to come out and I just want to ride a horse and catch a fish, yeah, we can do that because
that's easy.
We went out scouting for elk at one point.
Nice.
So for us, it was a cool trail ride that went up in this mountain. For them, it's killing two birds with one stone. Yeah. Absolutely. We'll show you guys a pretty cool part of Idaho. At the same time, I need to know where these elk are. So,
smart men.
They're going to get up there, and I learned the term glassing. They're going to go up and glass.
Yeah. What were they using? Binoculars? Were they using spotting scopes?
Binoculars. So we never even got off the horse, and they just were doing it. And I mean, their sight for elk and things was so good that they were telling me where the elk were, and I couldn't see them. But
that just comes from being good.
Absolutely. Time and time again, the guides out there you could tell they knew the land and what to look for, and it was amazing. So you that's like an intro. We're a half hour deep in this podcast, and we just got the tip of the Kyle iceberg. But man, the story that so near and dear to me is that bike trip you took up the West Coast. Because when I came back from the Appalachian Trail, didn't know too many people that do anything outdoorsy in general. I've always been on I've
I've had one buddy, Nate, growing up, and we'd drive down to Hocking Hills, which I know you're ultra familiar with. Mm-hmm. We'd go camping in a sense of, we had a tent that was camping. We had a tent and like $30 Walmart sleeping bags. I didn't know anything existed such as like...
That was like my childhood.
Yeah. Like
car camping with your parents and that's what you do. Like that's as outdoorsy as you can be.
And my parents never even took us camping. We rented a cabin in Hocking Hills once, I think. But I grew up in a house in the middle of it was a 10-acre woodlot in Michigan, surrounded by woods. It was probably like 300 acres of woods, but we had a 10-acre woodlot. That was like my dad's dream home. So I grew up there. So I think to my dad, going out and camping was stupid because like we live in it. Like
this practically is camping.
Like we heated the house with wood, not because like my parents were destitute, but like my dad was like, why else would you live in the woods? You know, it was just like, that was just what we did. And I hated it growing up. Like all your fall was spent chopping wood instead of going out and screwing around. Like I'm not going to pretend like I've always just loved the outdoors. But
I think the things you hate when you're a kid and then
love it
appreciate
now.
When you become
I'd go split wood
older
any day of the week.
Is ridiculous. Like worst thing ever when you're a kid.
I have dreams that I would just go out and split wood. But like to segue into your trip, I think this is initially when I was like, this dude is legit. Like I'm gonna hang out with this dude because you and Ashley did was how many miles? I always get the number wrong. You did a biking trip up the West Coast for your honeymoon. Hey everybody, just wanted to take a quick second in the middle of the podcast to say thank you to our sponsors, Friends for Life. We got Tony back here, the CEO for letting us use their podcast studio. This dude rules. You should definitely check them out on social media. Love working with these guys. Friends for Life, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all that stuff. Thank you, Tony. You're the man.
It was. So when we were doing our thing at camp, 2010, we were married. It was 2009 into 2010. We were married in 2009. And then we worked at this camp, so we had like 2 days off. And like our honeymoon was like, we didn't work for those 2 days like that we were off. So when it came time to being done with being a horse camp director and she was a paddling instructor, I was like, okay, well now we have adequate time to do like our honeymoon. So she had family that lived out west and I've never been out west. And so we're like, hey, let's go out west, visit some people, and also like ride our bikes up the coast. We'll start in Sacramento, where we have a family friend that lives out there, ride up. Well, first of all, we got to ride out to the coast, and then the 101 Coastway all the way up to, mid-Oregon, and then head into Portland and take a train back. So we trained out there, trained back over 2 days for each trip. So yeah, it was like, well, what should we do? Like, because at that point, we just got done finishing working for the summer. We had no jobs lined up after that. So it was like, well, what do you want to do? It wasn't like, well, we have a week or we have any sort of limitation. It was, what do you want to do?
For how long? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think that was huge. If we didn't have that, if we would have had to go back and, get started with another job soon or go back and to Ohio and look for another job, we would have been like, well, we can go to Cincinnati for a weekend and, but no, like this was like, where do you want to go? And so that was just, well, let's ride our bikes for as long as we want to and see some people and see some places I'd never been. Ashley had been to Oregon the year before, about a year and a half before I was. So I think a lot of times, apparently, my trips are completely based on where Ashley has been before, and then I follow suit. But I think, as soon as you do see someplace like that, you have to share it with somebody or tell somebody, at least tell them to go someplace. Like, as soon as you experience something, you have to share it in pictures, podcasts, whatever it is.
Take them there physically and force them to enjoy
them to
it.
Go. And so that's what we did. So we went out, started in Sacramento, and then biked in some of the hottest weather I've ever been a part of, and just flat. And then it came, I think it was like a day and a half of flat, which we're used to, but not the heat.
Yeah.
And then
You talking
just
like
up.
100 degrees?
It was close. It was close. We used 100 SPF, which I don't think was enough. Like, I burn. I might like to be outside, but I don't think I was meant to ever be outside.
You get pretty toasty red.
Absolutely. So just like covering ourselves in sunscreen and just like that, like hot, sticky, like just miserable.
I know the feeling.
But at the same time, awesome experience. It's funny doing those things that a lot of people would be like, that'd be the worst thing ever. I think if you put yourself in a different context, a different spot. So put me in Ohio in 100-degree weather, and I'm like, this I don't like it. Put me in California, and this is the best thing ever. This is an adventure. So it's funny those little things that can mess with your psyche. All of a sudden, this is the coolest thing ever compared to like, I'm not going out today. It's too hot.
Well, I think a lot of people, and I say this in every episode I've ever done of anything. I'm terrible for generalizing, where I say like everybody, but a lot of people, from my personal experience, are such wimps when it comes to anything outdoors, let alone like heat, any sort of inconvenience. And I think it's like it turns them into big crybabies. And I'm like, that to me, that's like what makes everything better. It makes you as a person like more enduring. Like you're tougher after you do something. Like you're out riding a bike in 100-degree weather, like the sweat just dripping off your body, and like if you can handle that, everything else is just like whatever.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong.
I think that's what makes.
I'm part of the problem with that. So if it's in a different situation where it's like, for me, I'm seeing this adventure, then I'm cool with it. But if it's an everyday life where it's like I'm in Ohio and I can go out and ride my bike today, or go out for a hike and it's 100 degrees, I'm like, I'm not going out today. Like, but that'd be all, if you have to do it,
I guess. I don't know.
I think you're different than I am.
I'm not a big fan of whining about stuff.
I think you're different than
regardless of my at my house, we didn't have air conditioning until this summer, and we turned it on one time.
Never get central air.
No, I never had it. I bought one of those. Actually, no, I didn't even buy it. My parents gave it to me because they're creature comfort lovers. They bought one. It wasn't big enough for them, so they gave me their old one. And I was just like, I mean, I'll take it. But we turned it on one day, and I was like, yeah, this is going to cost too much to run that in the house. I'm good.
Now that I've had central air, I won't do it any other.
No, I don't blame you.
There's no way.
There's no way
that's the problem that people face, I think. As soon as they become comfortable, they don't want to see anything but
less than that.
Absolutely. And I think I told you this last time we sat down, and for some reason it keeps coming in my mind. And a good friend of mine always said, you'll never know when you're comfortable unless you've been uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I think that was just like, whoa, like.
But
like,
you learn that
at first, like, how dare you, like, say, like, challenge me that way? I think that everybody at first is like, what? Whoa, hold on a second. But then if you really think about it, like, how are you gonna know? Like, if you're not out in 100-degree weather, even if it's in Ohio or Alaska or wherever you're at, then how can you really appreciate being in a cool central air home?
That's why I'm always driven to people who are a little bit psychotic, I think, a little bit like on the, like when most people hear something, like I've given a ton of presentations about the Appalachian Trail, like to the point I don't even want to do it anymore when I get asked, because I'm just like, so like I want to move on to bigger and better things, and I know I talk about it so much, but it's like a defining life moment. Like you can't just drop it, just like the bike ride for you or like anything. Like it's a
long time ago, but
it's a defining thing that
think
made
back
me.
to it. It made you completely, like, most likely because I went out for a month and stayed mostly in a cool area once I got out of Sacramento area, compared to like 5 months on the trail. Mm-hmm. Like you're going to be able to be perfectly fine. Yeah. 6 months on a trail with no amenities. I think you built yourself, and that's probably just who you are, but I think you built yourself to a point where, like, I don't need air conditioning,
but I
slept outside for 6 months.
I don't know if it's So, like, this is why I like to talk to people who've done things like this, because I want to know.
I think every adventure that I've ever done, whatever you want to call it, it almost feels like you're not supposed to do it.
Oh yeah, it feels really weird,
like
wrong.
One of the most fun things I've ever done, or like a lot of my favorite memories are coming from like running in the rain, like downpour rain, like where like mostly you're the only person out there, but when you're out there, it almost feels like you shouldn't be.
Well, we've talked about this before. Like, some of my favorite times to go out is when it's bad weather, because nobody's going to be out there.
Yeah.
And you see stuff that you would never see otherwise. Mm-hmm. You see stuff that, like, you see animal behaviors that you would never see just on like a bright sunny day. You see, like, it smells different. It feels different. Like the whole, and like, most people don't even go outside, let alone get those experiences. So for me, I'm like soaking it in.
Yeah.
I'm like a sponge with nature, man. Like, but back to like the point I was trying to make was, like, did you feel like the biking, the distance, the struggle of it all, did that define like the next 10 years of your life, or however long ago that was? Did that like make you kind of like reevaluate and like become like a better version of yourself in like, because I'll give you an example of how I mean, because I know that's a little convoluted. Like, so before the Appalachian Trail, I was like just a college dude, like out. I'd go to the park occasionally. I'd train to hike the AT. I didn't know too much. I was just like, I thought about it. I liked it. I didn't know anything about anything. I just enjoyed being outside. But the second I stepped on that trail, it was game over. To where I'm at today, my life is defined by outdoors everything. It's just, that's who I became. It's like I molted. Like I molted my old self. And you can see it through my pictures of college. Like, you see the change start to happen. Like, it's just that, like, from then on, it was 100%. It went from like 50%, like, I like this stuff, to now it's like 100. Like, I started this Aptitude Outdoors the day I got off the trail. It was like, this is it. This is me forever.
I think there's a lot of truth to that. I mean, you go do this like incredible experience, and then you get home from that, and then you're like, oh, well, now what? And then you're like, okay, well, what's my next thing? For me, it was like running in high school. It was like, I got to go to Florida, and then I got to go to Australia. But then I think it was like, what else can I do now? Like, I got to do something that not a whole lot of people do. What's another thing that not a whole lot of people do? And maybe that's my draw to these things. It's like, okay, not a whole lot of people are going out and taking a train across the U.S. and riding their bike. Not a lot of people, whenever they have a vacation, they're going to go to an all resort paid.
Yeah.
All expenses paid, and they're going down to some beach. I want to go to a mountain. Maybe that's part of the draw for me, and that's not for everybody. But I think it's, like you, and I think for me, I have too many hobbies.
Oh shit, yeah. So, I'm right there with you.
I have way too many hobbies. Like I'm not really good at anything, but I'm decently good at a lot of things.
That's probably why we get along so well, because we're both like ADD. Like,
yeah.
Like
as soon as I want to do something, I'll get right into it, and that'll be cool for a while. And then I'm like, hey, I seen this thing, and I would really like to try this. Coming into hunting for the first time this year.
Dude,
never thought I would do it.
So
never had any interest.
That was my whole next piece that I was going to talk about with you and hunting. But since you brought it up, we might as well just go right there, because so it's hilarious. My experience with hunting was partially inspired by, again, I hate to keep bringing this up. But like the Appalachian Trail thing, but I really started thinking like,
I think you're right. That shaped you into figuring out who you were going to become.
Well, I was super.
You would be different without that experience.
I was super huge in like researching, because I'm not the kind of guy that just like goes out and does stuff. Like, I will read like every book on the subject before I even step foot. So I read like every piece of book that mentioned the Appalachian Trail, like history books, like like anthropology volumes. Like I read it all. Anything that had to do like the history of the people.
That sounds fun. That really sounds like a lot of fun.
But like I came across the Eustace Conway. I don't know if you know who he is or if you heard about him before, but he basically like a mountain man, like to the extreme. Like he's probably like 60 years old now. He just basically went off the grid and like as a young man, like 17, and just lived in the woods, like killing deer, building teepees, like living out there, like for real. But he was talking about these experiences where he would kill deer, and he talked about this one time where he basically got like he went to kill it, got a bad shot in, and like he basically ended up tracking this deer down and like cutting its throat to kill it. Like, and he said it was the most like sad, happy. He's like the way he described it in his book was he was sitting on the ground holding his deer's head after he killed it and just like crying and like just super happy at the same time. And I was like, that's some real shit right there. That's not like, hell yeah, let's go hunt this weekend, dude. I want to kill something. Like, and I know people that do that, and it really pains me. And I'm not like some sentimental, sappy guy. Like, ask my wife. But like, to just go out there and blow holes in something just for the hell of it, like, to me is just disgusting.
I don't get it either.
And I do not like it. And that's why I'm not a professional hunter by any standard. I've only been hunting for like 3 years now. This is my 3rd year. But like, it's very, very like deep seated in me to have it. It's like, to me, it's like a real thing that I'm very in tune with and I'm like obsessed with now. And it's so funny because you and I kind of got we got into archery around the same time. We started shooting together. There's an archery park nearby we'd go shoot at. And I remember succinctly after my first hunting season, I got a buck during gun season. I was like, I really want to get into archery, mostly because it extends your season like exponentially, but also it is like a more intimate, like challenging experience. And, you know, and not even, that sounds like a little elitist, but you know, it really is. It's hard. You have to put a lot of damn time into it. And I love that stuff. But
for the most part, you have to be closer.
You have to be good, dude.
You have to be, yeah. And I've told a lot of people before I wanted to hunt, like I never saw the appeal to it because I see my cousins growing up and they're like 11 years old and they get a deer and I'm like, okay, like what's the skill level here? Having said that, I probably could go out my entire life and never get a deer with a rifle, bow, whatever it would be. Like I get that there is definitely skill level no matter when you're going out there, but you see all these kids like getting these deer with these rifle and to me it was like, okay, what's really challenging here? And shooting bow was like, oh, I think it's really cool. It's a lot of fun and I'll just shoot targets. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, okay. And I think, you know, not pressure, but pressure from you, like you should really try this. You should go out there. That became another thing. It was like, well, okay, what haven't I done? What can I do now? And it was like, you know, and I think for me, like one of the big reasons, it might be weird, but like having 2 kids was like, I want to provide.
Yeah.
And I think bow hunting and hunting in general is like taking it back to like early times where you couldn't go to the supermarket. You had to provide.
It feels good.
You know, it's not, it does. It really does. And I think you know, I was like, I want to provide, put food on the table. And I think for me, it was like, well, you just go buy that thing. But, you know, if you go to the store and you're doing this forever and somebody's taking this animal, somebody's processing this animal, somebody is providing this at the grocery store. Well, I was like, why don't I do that at least once?
And that, I'm so glad you said that because that is why I pressured you into hunting because, and I'm like super stoked because it went from like, hey man, I did this and it was like amazing. It's so frustrating. It's so much like time and pressure and effort and just not wasted. It's just so many days spent out in the woods, cold, just miserable, rained on, snowed on, feet frozen. And as you've recently experienced, that moment where it becomes real is when they start, when you're there. There's a shot, and it's like, holy shit. And I wanted you to experience that. So I would say 2 years, maybe a year ago, I was like, I think I like planted the seed. Like, man, you should consider this. Like, what if you just go out and just kind of experience it? So I was super happy this year when you're like, dude, we're doing this. So we've gone out hunting. How many? You've probably been out there 3 or 4 times now.
3 times.
I remember the first day I texted you like right the night before, like, you nervous, man? You're like, oh, hell yeah. And I was the same way. I was like, I literally shit myself in the woods. I was so nervous on my first day out hunting. I literally was out in the, I had to pull all my layers off, and I crapped in the woods. I was so nervous.
I'm surprised that wasn't me, because there's been so many times where I've pooped in places I should have. But
it was for real though. I was
so
like
that. I mean, that nervous poo comes with a lot of different things. And for me, I was at Walmart at 11
like
p.m.
panicking
the night before, as I knew I was gonna have to get up like 4. Like, what do I need to make sure like I'm ready? And that was the biggest thing. It's like, okay, I'm not gonna be some jackwagon going out there and like I'm going to shoot this deer.
Yeah.
And
no offense to Southern people.
Absolutely.
Oh, dang.
But, you know, as primal as it is, or, you know, go back in history of having to hunt for your food, as much as I wanted it to be like this, like, experience, I also don't want to go out there unprepared. And I think feeling like I was comfortable with that shot this year, and knowing like, okay, like I'm ready to go out and like kill an animal, because it will be food source, and you know, it's not like I just go out there and kill and like walk away.
And so to bring this like around, my first year, I only went out for gun. I didn't even have a bow, but I did have a shotgun. I had my dad handed me down a shotgun, so I took that, I sighted it, you know, I got a general feel for it. And so this deer comes up across the wood lot. And for those people that are listening, if you're not from Ohio, I mean, we got cornfields and we got 10-acre wood lots, and they're all right next to each other. So the deer will walk these edges of the fields where they kind of meet and stitch together to these wood lots for cover as they try to cross. So I'm sitting on the corner of this wood lot. It's just common hunting practice in Ohio, probably most of the Midwest, I would assume. So this deer comes running across, and we can't even use high power rifles. We have very pretty limited choices of what we can use, because there's no backstop. You shoot something, the bullet can go forever because it's just flat. So I'm sitting there with a 12 gauge shotgun slug. And my thought is, I hear all these guys like, oh, I didn't get anything this season. I'm just like, yeah, I'll probably just sit out here and be cold. And literally, I think it was my 3rd day out gun season, this buck comes just trotting across the field, and it's so surreal. I'm like, there's no way this is happening right now. I literally a half hour ago just shit my pants, and this giant deer comes hucking across the field. He got to probably 20 yards, and I was just like, my heart felt like it was going to explode. It was so fast. It was like a blur in time.
At the time, you had no idea how close he was.
No.
You don't think about
I wasn't thinking about anything. I had my shotgun shouldered for 5 minutes. As I just had it on my shoulders, he walked around. My arms are tired. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm out here for a reason. And I let him get too close. And he came to me. And he looked. This moment I'll never forget for the rest of my life. His head came up. We made eye contact. And he goes, like this big steam of buck breath comes out, and I'm like, the only thing that went through my mind right now is, if I do not pull this trigger, I'm gonna blow the biggest opportunity probably ever. So this is my first time hunting, okay? So I'm like not super proud of this moment, but
this is your first time ever out.
Ever. I mean, I've had my hunting license since I was 14, but we never went hunting. And we grew up in the woods, so I don't have an answer for that. It just never happened. I don't know. We shot guns and stuff all the time, so I'm familiar with like firearms and how they work and how to shoot them. So this buck, I have the bead on his chest. He's facing me forward, like directly, and I've read the books. You want to get a broadside shot in, blah blah blah. So I was waiting for him to turn broadside. Well, it never happened. So I aim best broadside I can get as he whips around, pull the trigger, and that deer spun around so fast. It's like lightning speed to watch this thing. It's happened in a blur, and I hit him, but I hit him in the back leg, and I felt like the biggest piece of shit on earth. I was so pissed off at myself because I could see him running. Luckily, there was a little bit of light snow on the ground. He was just, he was moving still. All adrenaline. So long story short, we track him through the woods, lose the blood trail in the same woodlot that you and I were going to. We'll get to that in a minute. And, dude, we were out there forever. It was like 2 hours tracking this deer. And then, eventually lose the blood trail, pick it up again, like so sparse, and then he's like tangled in this brush, and like just take a basically like close range shot through the lungs to just get it over with because he's obviously severely injured. That might be one of the saddest and like most epically, insanely like thrilling moments of my life because like you have. Like, there's no choice at that point. Like, you can't let this thing lay here and suffer. But, like, to watch something die of your, like, initiative is insane. And it's, like, so surreal. And then, like, at the same time, like, I'm not proud of that shot. But, like, I've said this to you because you've recently had an experience similar. And I was like, dude, you got to realize, and I've only come to this conclusion myself because of like obsessively watching shows like Meat Eater and stuff. Like I'm not like, there's no even like trying to pretend like that dude isn't like my idol in every way, shape, and form, Steven Ranella. But like he always just says like we're not going to discuss the ethics of hunting because you're killing something, and it's like I don't want to misquote him, but that's essentially the gist. It's like the sport, if you want to call it that, is to kill an animal and eat it. So like there's no, you can discuss ethics until you're blue in the face, and like people who don't hunt are going to be pissed off and whatever, but like yeah, I don't know if you're just going to kill it and let it rot in the woods and take its head, whatever. I don't want anything to do with that. But if your goal is to go out there, kill it, and do right by the animal, eat it, use it, trophy, as to remember it by. Like, yes, he died. The end of his life sucked because I shot him in the leg. But he killed him, ate the whole deer, and like super proud. And like I will forever love hunting because of that moment. And I don't know how comfortable you are describing your recent hunting experience, but I want to know if you had like a similar rush and like if the experience was the same for you as it was for me, but in a different context for your first time out ever. Well.
But
first
year.
Like,
might as well
time.
say like it was like a week apart, whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
I think we had the same like goal going out. Like we're gonna use this deer. It's for a purpose. It's not just to go out and shoot whatever and whatever happens. Like my biggest fear going into hunting happened on the second day I ever went out. Like it was horrible.
I watched it happen.
Yeah, you were with me. We were hunting side by side, and then next thing we know, we like don't see anything. Put our bows down on our seats, like just waiting. Both got binoculars in our hand, and I just happened to turn around, and there's 3 deer.
So for some context, this is like the tail end of the rut. This is like the week before gun season. So the bigger buck that is in our area, which is probably long gone now. It's gun week's over. Somebody probably shot him. He's probably hanging on someone's wall. But so this is the tail end, and I'm thinking, my brain is thinking, anytime I've seen a deer during gun week, they've been out in the fields. So Kyle and I are facing the field, and I'm like, I'm gonna get this dude a deer. It's gonna come running across. Opposite happened.
Field to field. That's all we're looking for.
Yeah.
We're not looking in the woods
behind us.
Rut's over. Yeah, absolutely. So as soon as I realized, I don't know why, I turned around. I was just like, what's going on in the woods? And I see like this movement, and it's like 3 deer. And I'm having like, Paul, hey, Paul. And he's not listening. So
I was like taking cell phone pictures through my binoculars or something. I was like, this looks cool.
Finally, I was like, Paul. and and you looked, and I was like, there's 3 deer right there. So, you've had more experience than I have, but I don't think it'd be necessarily wrong to say that we're not totally experienced in this thing.
No, I don't say I'm experienced at all.
Our first thought is like, we got to go where they are. We have to move. And I don't know if that was necessarily correct.
I think that was the terrible decision.
Probably not the best idea, but and our goal is to get this deer. Like, we see a deer, they go that way, we go that way too. So Paul starts to move. You start to move through this woods as quiet as you can, which humans can't move quietly through a woods.
Honestly,
unless like years and years of training through that.
I'm not trying to defend myself here. I was really just trying to like get a visual on where they were. Like the brush was so thick.
There was no shooting lane.
No, there was no way to get a shot.
Yeah, no, I don't think you were wrong in what you were doing, but in like thinking back on it, like probably should have just sat still and still as possible. Instead, I think we were both so excited to see deer that like we were just like, what do we got to do to get this?
So I had thought about this after the fact. Like once you have time to decompress and you're
everything's
done
always after.
Yeah, you think, and it was funny because I had sprayed a little bit of doe estrus on the area we were sitting, and I was thinking to myself, if we would have sat there and waited, I'll bet you the buck would have popped out of the woods and came back out and around to investigate, because he would have been like, where's this coming from? But that's like hindsight. Hindsight's 20/20.
Absolutely.
When you're in the moment, your heart's about to rip out of your chest, and we're looking at each other like, oh shit, dude, this is real.
Hindsight is we should have waited.
Yeah,
we should have done nothing. During the moment was, we want deer. That's deer. We're gonna go after him. So watching you go through this,
it sucked. It was stupid.
This like, I'm gonna go really quiet. Like,
there's no way
we can't go quiet. Like,
first step was like a twig, just
like 6'2". Like,
yeah, 6'1".
You're not going
260.
You're not going quiet through anything. Neither am I.
No.
But so many thoughts of like, what do I do? And I was trying to stay as still as possible, and freaking out that there are deer probably 30 yards. Away from us? Not even
they
there?
were probably like 15, 20.
I mean, they were close, but you had nothing that we could shoot.
Well, and
my thought was like, what do I do?
In the moment, I was thinking maybe if I scare them, they'll pop out of the woods and try and run, and you could get a shot in. But they just ran through the woods.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, we were on the northeast corner. Mm-hmm. They just completely headed west. Like,
yeah, gone.
Like, they're smart. It's kind of
they're not stupid. No, they're much smarter than I am.
So my thought was like, okay, well, if Paul's going to track them through the woods going west.
I wanted to just see where they were going. Yeah, I wanted to try.
What
and
I
see
needed
where
to do was go north and go around to the west side,
mm-hmm.
and like, if you were going to spook them, I would be there to hopefully take a shot. Well, finally, when I get over to the west side of the woods, and what is that wood plot like?
The
acre and a half.
Which one?
Your wood plot, like
10. It's 10 acres.
It's 10 acres.
Yeah, it just seems so small because you're in the middle of all these cornfields.
Yeah,
like, the visibility is great because you can see the edges of all the woods.
It seems a lot smaller than what it is, because it doesn't take long to get from one side to the other.
Because my parents growing up was 10 acres, and it seemed way bigger than that. But it was all surrounded by woods.
All the rest, yeah. So once I make it over to the west side of the woods, you are still going as quiet as possible through this woods. I'm pretty sure I see the deer on the other side of the field in another woods to our west.
Yeah, that's probably 200 yards across the field from where we were at.
And so I just kind of tucked myself back in the woods and like watched these deer. And I think at that point my thought was, we're going to watch these deer to kind of pick up, learn anything that we could, because there's no way they're coming back. And I was just sitting there and stupid, like 2019, like I'm on my phone, like just either texting you or texting other people, just kind of bored, because I was like, okay, we're watching these deer, but I remember they know where we are. They're not going to come back. And then at one point I looked up to find these deer, and they're nowhere. To me, I can't find them. And I remember texting like, they're gone. And you just said, hold on. So at that point I looked around this tree, and they're walking to me, like just the same as your hunt goes for the first time out. And all of a sudden this thing presents itself. Same thing with these two does.
And so I'm probably 40 yards north of you. We my friend Bill and I built a blind out there out of all like There's a lot of dead ash trees out there from like the ash borer came through. That whole woodlot's just decimated. So there's a lot of dead stuff on the ground. So we built this giant blind. It looks like a little mini log cabin. It's great. Blocks the wind a little bit. So I'm sitting in this thing watching the deer come across. And I'm like, they're headed right to you because you're sitting basically on the trail where they enter the woods. And I'm like, oh, hell yes. And then like because you can't see him, I'm like, don't move, dude. So yeah.
I think the biggest advantage I had was it had rained the week before, day before.
It rained that morning, yeah, a little bit, because we were sitting in the rain for a while. Like,
yeah, it was like a light rain to start.
And the wind,
very light.
The wind was covering us. It was blowing straight north, basically.
So there was a really good puddle in the field where the deer like they just like walked right to me, to the point where if I didn't look to the left and right of the tree, I don't see anything. So they walked to this pond.
Puddle in the field.
To take a drink, and if I lean to the left of the tree, I see one doe, and if I lean to the right of the tree, I see another doe. And I was like, okay, like same moment that you had, like this is it. Like
your heart just you feel like you're gonna die.
It was crazy, and I couldn't believe like watching them walk to me was like
it's surreal. This isn't real.
Like there's no way this is happening. And I remember being like, excuse me, I was like, fuck.
Yeah.
Like
that's the only
this is happening right now. And I was like, okay, like this is why you're out here. This is what you're going to do. Your intent is to use this animal to help promote my life, my kid's life, my wife. Like it's not just out there to kill it and then walk away and be like, that was fun. So it was like, I remember like vaguely having this like moment of like, this is like, it's on. This is going to happen. And they came probably 15 to 20 yards. I would say probably 20 yards from me. During the time, I didn't like, okay, they are 20 yards. I'm going to use my green first pin. Like, no, like none of that happened. When I drew behind the tree and then leaned out, as soon as I went to sight the doe, that bigger doe on my left, better shooting lanes on the right, bigger doe on the left. I was like, I obviously need to take this one on the left. I closed my wrong eye to start. I didn't know, and I was like, "What's going?" And like, was completely off. And I was like, "Wait!" And I closed that eye, opened the right eye, and like that's how nervous / anxiety, adrenaline, all emotions hit at once.
It's like a free for all. Your body's like,
and I have never done that. I've never closed the wrong eye to shoot my bow. But in that moment, I was so nervous, and
over the last couple of years, we've put in some hours out on the archery range.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's not just like we bought bows and we went hunting this weekend. We put in some time. I mean, we've been sighting in like 40, 50 yard, like pushing our limits of
trying to make sure that we know what's going on when we go out there. So yeah, to close the wrong eye, I knew that I was like, okay, take a breath, but still didn't necessarily, and maybe unless you've done this for years, maybe you never really like. Everything's so slow and fast at the same time, but I don't know of anybody that like could potentially like, okay, well, I'm gonna shoot this deer at 20 yards and it's gonna be on the green pin. Like no, like your adrenaline is so high that you're going on feel, and at that point, hopefully those hours and that time that you've put in pay off. Because if you're going out there, I think, and try to calculate, you're probably going to be off. Like you have to go on some sort of feel and some sort of experience at that point. And so my biggest fear was to go out there and just maim an animal, hurt an animal, and like that would be it. Like, oh, well, that sucks. But eventually that's what happens. So the shot presents itself. The deer at that point does exactly the same thing that your buck did. It was where it's looking at you and it's like looking, and
that's the make or break,
going up and down.
Yeah,
where it's like trying to figure out what's this movement over here, but it's not really sure.
And your brain's like, this is it.
Yeah. And so I hold.
You don't even have the choice anymore. It's not up to you. It's just like, it's now or never, baby.
And I know like, okay, like I'm waiting, and it is broadside for me. For a little while I went broadside and it kept turning towards me and then broadside. And I was to the point where I was like, did I wait too long? But then it turned broadside. It was looking at me, and I was trying to hold as still as possible while shaking.
Yeah.
And
the shakes.
As soon as the doe went down to take another drink, that's when I released. And for me, still being like adrenaline pumping, I didn't necessarily know exactly where it hit. Like you think that you're going to be able to see exactly where the arrow hits. You're going to know what's going on. If it was a clean shot, if it was off. And to me, it was like maybe it was a little far back. So shoot this doe, so excited, wait for a while, watch this doe run out to the middle of the woods or the field, and then waiting for it to go drop or whatever it's going to do.
And she was moving slow.
Really slow.
I was like, at first I was like, did you hit the deer? I didn't know, because I was like,
yeah,
maybe she just ran off and was like, I think I'm going back there. Because all I heard was a sploosh in the water,
loud splash,
and then I saw a deer run, and I was like, well, I was about ready to give you a bunch of shit, like, way to go.
I flung that arrow right into that water. That was good.
That's what I thought happened.
And it might have happened. Well,
yeah.
I don't think that exactly happened, but I think splashing potentially masked what really happened.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there was some string jump as soon as she heard that twang. And I just got string silencers like the day before, trying to like.
You got a nice bow too. It's not some like off the rack Walmart
Absolutely,
bow.
yeah. I mean, it's a Hoyt. Got it from some guy that shot it in his basement twice and was like, "This ain't for me."
Yeah.
So I get, it was, if buying that bow compared to the bow I started with just felt more comfortable. Mm-hmm. So I think that was part of the reason why I was like, let's go hunting. And
same thing. I had a crappy one last year, and I got a brand new Bear Divergent, and I was like, night and day.
By no means does gear buy like your experience, but at the same time, like there's a certain jump in between like sometimes entry level to like.
Well, I had no idea that the bow I had was a piece of shit until I got the new bow. I thought I just sucked. I was so mad. I was like, no matter what I do,
you were mad a lot.
I suck.
And I knew that your time that you're putting into it, something had to give.
I put in time. I put in serious time.
Yeah, your old bow was one of those things where it's fun, but you want to get serious about something. You want to be able to like do it well. I think you made the right choice with it, and that's where like your difference between like I got this cheap thing, because I could afford it easily.
Actually,
to, like,
Bill gave it to me. He got a new bow, and he's like, "You want to actually hunt bow? Here you go." I was like, "Hell yeah!" We shot a lot.
Absolutely.
I adjusted that bow more times than I can count. But anyway, not to distract.
Way too much. Yeah. So I shot this doe, and then we just kind of waited, watched it.
We gave her 45 minutes.
45 minutes.
Watched
I think
her.
about a half hour, 25 minutes into it, I went up and met with you to just kind of wait it out.
I hugged you.
Yeah.
I was like, hell yeah.
That was like the first thing was like, I need to
I
hug
could see
you.
it
Like,
in your face. You were just like, oh my God.
I couldn't believe that happened. Like, especially like second time out. Yeah. Like first time we went out, didn't even see a deer. Second time out, I have a deer approach me when it never should have.
Yeah.
And then the shot presents itself. I take it. And at that point really felt as though that was it. Like I've now claimed this deer. We're going to go get it.
I 100% expected to walk across the woodlot, and that deer was dead like 30 feet in the woods.
Yeah. I thought it was going to die in the middle of the field. And then we watched her walk in. We knew exactly where it walked into the field. And then I figured like it's going to be right in that woods. And
so we're getting ready. We're going to track her.
Well, yeah, as we're waiting. So it's been maybe 20 minutes at that time. Like a monsoon rips through.
Insane. The highest wind I've ever seen in Northwest Ohio. For like a half hour straight. It just
like nuts. Absolutely nuts.
No, it was like 15 minutes.
It wasn't long at all. Like, and it was fine to start.
Like we had our backs to the wind and our hoods like up over our heads because it was blowing. The rain hurt. It was blowing so hard.
Yeah.
It's like holy.
Watching trees. Like, I really hope these aren't going to fall.
And my first thought was like, well, there goes any trail. Holy shit.
Yeah. So it just like the rain and winds ripped through there.
Couldn't have been any worse conditions to track.
No. So I know my arrow is laying in that puddle in the field still, and so I'm hoping that it has some sort of signs on it, but to lay in that puddle and then like especially like, I don't know, even I think the wind's ripping through probably
that thing was
helped wash this thing so clean. So there's no tell of how the shot was to start, and then so the arrow's clean. Okay, we'll go from there. So I said, Paul, should we go out in the middle of the woods and try to like find this blood trail? And I think you were like, well, we could, or we can just go exactly where we know exactly where that the doe went in the woods. I was like, oh yeah, we could probably just do that. I wanted to like go by the book of like, I know it's shot here and we're going to go here. And so, yeah, we go straight to
we watched it walk in right there. I think that's a good starting point.
We can probably go there. So we go there and we find nothing to start. Maybe 5 minutes. And then you find like the first sight of blood.
Very little.
The very smallest portion.
When I shot that buck, there was blood everywhere. It was like tracking like a red painting on a white canvas. This was like a dime-sized drop of blood.
Like just barely on the leaf. Like
then
you
nothing,
barely see it.
Nothing
for a long time.
We searched in that circle for like 30 minutes probably with nothing.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't see a single blood drop. And there were obvious deer trails.
So many times of going back to the first and then trying to go out. And
nothing.
then like even, you try to think of like a deer, you can't. I mean, you have some sort of inclination of where it might go.
Well,
but then like nothing.
Since I had a experience in that woodlot, because that's where my buck went, my first thought was she's probably going to go to die in a thick, brushy area. So like I was like, yeah, I mean, we're going to head that way. But there was no sign. There was no signal of like where she potentially could have gone.
No, not at all. And that woods is so much different than the woods that we hunt in because the hunting lanes are so small. Not small. I mean, there's a lot of underbrush.
Yeah.
A lot of thick stuff in the woods that we're able to hunt in.
And that's about to change.
And then, yeah, absolutely. And so then, we got permission to go to...
Yeah, you called it. We went on the auditor's website, got the number, called. You called like 8 people.
We had to call a lot of people to figure it out.
Got his son, the owner's son.
But I felt good about it, and they were like, absolutely, go ahead. Mm-hmm. So when we got over there, it was just this open woods. So there's really no thick part of that woods that we at least started in that would be like, okay, there's going to be a deer laying down here. So
the trails were pretty obvious, but they were everywhere because it was so open. There was
absolutely.
There's like 6 trails in this entrance.
Well, we got to the point where once we found the first blood and then nothing more and nothing of substance at all.
We split up and combed the woods.
We figured at that point, hey, I'm going to go this way. Mm-hmm. You go that way. And a lot of nothing for probably a good 20 minutes at that point. And that brought us to like an hour and a half after I took the shot.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'm thinking she's got to be dead by now. If you hit her like how you thought you hit her, she's got to be dead.
Especially how we watched her walk in the field. So we were walking in, and then I get a call from you. I found her. I see more blood. She just got up and ran like there's nothing wrong with her at all.
Fast.
Nothing.
I spooked her out of the thick brush. She jumped up out of the brush right in front of me and just headed basically right to you.
Yeah. So where I was...
You're a little north of me.
Little further north. As soon as you said that, I was like, how?
Yeah.
And then look up, and there she's sprinting towards me. She realizes I'm right there. She sees me. She takes off further to the west at that point. You see her, I think, take off.
She takes off out into the field, open field with
the little doe
that was
ridge. The same doe that was there on the right side of the tree.
So to describe, it's crazy. This area is all flat, and then you get to this woodlot we're in, due west of where we hunted, and there's this big sand hill because we're in the Oak Openings region. So it's like this big, massive sand hill out of nowhere. Not massive, like 20 feet high at the pinnacle, but
massive for Ohio.
So she runs up this thing like nobody's business, and then gone. We followed her footprints through the sand, which was great, easy to track in.
Mm-hmm.
No
blood.
No blood at all.
All through that, even though we see the tracks.
There was a little blood from where she got up and ran towards you and then ran back. Little, like another like quarter-sized drop of blood. And then after that, we looked for another hour and a half after that. Mm-hmm. Straight. Just every...
Up and over that ridge that she ran up.
Mm-hmm.
But then nothing. Like no track, no blood after that.
And we had footprints running back from that woodlot to the one that we were hunting in east, but they looked like no way that was her because there's nothing, no blood, nothing.
No. So
and that's
my biggest fear happened the second day out. Shot a deer and did not recover.
So And you were bummed. You were like distraught. I was like talking you off the ledge. I was like, dude.
One of the craziest, highest adrenaline times of my entire life. Immediately, a couple hours followed by like one of the lowest. Like,
yeah,
what just happened? Why did it happen? How did it happen? And then trying to figure out how, and not know. I can't tell you how it happened.
And like the whole point of the story is. And I'm glad you were comfortable to talk about it because most people wouldn't. They would never let anybody know that happened. And I think it's bullshit because so many people do that and you never hear about it. Mm-hmm. Like, that was part of like the consolation I was trying to give you. Like, yeah, that sucks. Like, I'm not going to deny that sucks. Like, terrible feeling. But I know a lot of people who've lost deer. Like, they just couldn't find them. And like, this isn't a controlled game. This isn't Monopoly. No. This isn't like this isn't hockey. This isn't, there's no semblance of control. It literally is you, an animal, and a projectile, and there's not a definite win. Like, it's part of the reason that I've been drawn to hunting so much, and I don't want this to be a hunting podcast, okay? Sure. Like, this isn't a hunting podcast, but it's an outdoors podcast. And to me, hunting is like one of the pinnacles of outdoorsmanship, and that's why I've like self-taught. I mean, I've had some people like Bill help me out, and I've talked to a ton of people because if you haven't noticed, I talk a lot about outdoors. That's all I do, and I've just gotten as much insight as I can, and I love it because there isn't a rule book. There's not like if you do this, you're gonna win. Like, the deer have as much chance as you do. You try and bend the rules and bend the whim and bend your knowledge to be successful, but you spend thousands of dollars on hunting equipment. You bathe and you try and get all the scent off you. You wash your clothes in special detergent. You buy an $800 bow. You practice all season. And those deer are so damn smart and so sensitive to their surroundings that it takes like one direction wind change and you're done.
You have no
for
advantage.
The day. You're over. You're
no
out.
Advantage.
No, they're 100 times smarter in any woods anything than I will ever be. And like that challenge right there, it makes to me like the ultimate like outdoors it's like the be all end all. Like, it's so much harder than anything I've ever done. I've done a lot of stupid stuff. Like, I've done unnecessarily hard challenges that I've created in my own mind. But this is so frustrating and so delicate. Like, there's no easy way to do it.
I think the correlation between hunting and then everything else we talked about is you see somebody hunting and you see like a trophy buck on their wall. And that's hunting. You see like a freezer full, and that's hunting. But the reality of it is you might take a shot and you might hit the back leg where it's not like this perfect thing. Or you might take a shot and you have no idea where the deer ended up, whether it's alive, whether it's dead. You have no idea. The same thing when you go on these adventures. Like, what adventure ever goes completely smooth?
None. Not any I've ever been on.
No, not at all. Whether it's a flat tire, the second day that you're out in California, or you're up in Maine, just like facing the worst weather you've ever been in, trying to just finish the Appalachian Trail. Like, that's the ticket. I spent days after, hitting that doe and not recovering, just feeling horrible.
Yeah.
But then it was like, okay, I think at that point I was like, now what? Do you just throw in the towel, or do you like make sure that you do everything you can to prepare next time how it's going to be? So I've read about how to better track. I've read about how, watched videos on YouTube. Like, if you don't hear or see that doe go down in the first half hour to 45 minutes, most likely now we completely just leave the woods, go out and do some things, and come back later in the day to give it that time. So I think you prepare yourself and you figure out how to be better next time.
Well, after that, we went out to the range and we were like hitting the broadhead targets heavy, trying to make sure like we weren't off, and like that's it.
It's the same as any adventure that you have. Like, it's not going to go right. So then how are you going to try to prepare for next time?
Well,
/ how are you going to be prepared to whatever comes? That's okay. And you're gonna adapt and deal with it.
Any person I look up to, all of them have the same motto. They're like, if you don't fail a million times, you're never gonna get better.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And like failing is part of getting better at something. That's just like life, man. Like I would never have finished the thru hike if I wouldn't have like had 1,000 mishaps of doing stupid stuff. Like, oh, I didn't bring enough water. Now I'm super dehydrated. Oh, I didn't pack enough food. Now I'm super hungry. Like now it's a fine-tuned machine. Like I get it. Like I know exactly what I need, what I don't need, why I need it. But I would have never known that. I would have still been out there with a Coleman, camp stove, sleeping on the ground with nothing. Like it's all part of failing 1,000 million times, and then like it's like a rectifying that failure.
You kind of figure out what you're made of at that point. Like you could have at that point in the Appalachian Trail, like, well, I guess it's not gonna happen, and I'm gonna have to go home and be okay with that. Or you can do exactly what you did and was like, this sucks. This is not ideal, but I have a goal that I set out to do, and regardless of how much it sucks or how much I don't want to maybe do this particular day, that the goal, the success at the end is going to be worth the crap, the stuff that happens in the end. And I think that's kind of where I hit in hunting was like, okay, second day out, the worst thing that could possibly happen happened. So now do what you have to do to make it happen
better.
Exactly. And do what you've set out to do. Probably the same thing with anything you've ever done. As soon as something happens and it sucks and they're like, that wasn't supposed to, that's not cool. Like I've been on Instagram 1,000 times and that's not how it looks on there.
Well, that doesn't help. I mean, I'm just as into Instagram as anybody, man. Like I'm out there.
Great.
I'm out there as much as any 14-year-old girl, but like
Instagram, Facebook, it's all everybody's best life. And then as soon as anybody puts anything on there that's not, they're like, this is ridiculous. How could you get on here and put something that's real on there?
And we're all guilty of that because you only want to show cool stuff. But I've been trying to get away from that. I've been trying to post more real shit because there's not enough of it. Everybody thinks everything's perfect.
Know that you're gonna, if you're gonna set out to do anything that goes out your front step, know that something during the day is gonna go wrong.
Yeah.
So what are you gonna do when it does? Especially if you're out in the middle of the rain running, or if you're out in the middle of the woods hunting, or whatever it is. You always expect that it's going to be perfect, but then how do you react when it's not?
Yeah, I think that's like the moral high ground to take is like, you have everything sucks until it doesn't, like, and it's all from learning, adapting to experience. And, yeah, man, I think that's a good takeaway for anyone listening. Just a good life lesson. I mean, not that we're like gurus or anything, but we've done enough stupid shit.
A lot of bad happened.
A lot of bad.
Yeah, like all my stories about the things that I've been lucky enough to do usually don't talk about the stories about the stuff that just like
sucks.
That really sucked.
Yeah.
Because it's crazy. If you persist through the rainstorm or the winds or whatever it is, like you're not going to remember the bad. You're only going to remember that good. You're only going to have that like Instagram mentality of like, I only know that, hiking the AT was only awesome, and going out and biking up the West Coast was the best, one of the coolest things I've ever done.
But the bad stuff makes it.
Without
does. The bad stuff,
oddly, it really does. Like. You would never like want to have these things happen, but it becomes such a greater thing because this happened, I was fine, and then I still was able to get my goal.
Yeah, and you learn to realize that things that at the point in time they're happening that seem like the worst thing in the world really actually are helping you in the long run, and they're not as bad as they end up being. So like if you can carry that mentality, anything that happens to you, you can just like, I've been through this before and I understand that it's not going to be this bad forever. It's just going to be a blip in time, and then everything's going to be back. So on that note, I think we have had a pretty good conversation, Kyle, and I really want to thank you for coming out and hanging out with me today. And I really also want to thank Friends for Life Podcast Studio. They're letting us use their beautiful space here, their bright orange room. And I want to give a shout out to them for sponsoring this podcast. And we'll be back again soon with more stories and more epic guests. And Kyle, you got any last words of encouragement for the good folks out there?
Just whatever doesn't seem like you should do it, do it. And if it's bad one day, continue on. Like, don't ever think that you can't do whatever, some sort of adventure, whether it's hike, bike, walk, anything. If it's bad one day, most likely it's going to be good at the end of it.
Amen to that, brother. And in a quick summary of that, Kyle's famous phrase, you gotta hit it.
You gotta hit it.
Peace out. We'll see you next time. Hey YouTube, thank you so much for watching this video. Please don't forget to subscribe. We have so much content lined up. It's insane. I don't even know how I'm gonna edit it all and get it out to you, but I'm super stoked. So remember, please subscribe. Keep coming back for more Aptitude Outdoors.